I'm Bianca Rossini, and welcome to the show. We've all heard the expression, "That's really hot," and we've all seen the movie, "Some Like It Hot." Well, today we have a fabulous show because my guest, Charles Casillo, has written a book about one of the hottest actresses to ever come out of Hollywood, Marilyn Monroe. The book is called The Marilyn Diaries. So, if you want to find out something really personal about Marilyn, don't go away. We'll be right back. Hello, I'm Bianca Rossini, and welcome back. My guest is Charles Casillo. He has written a steamy novel called The Marilyn Diaries. So welcome to the show, Charles. Nice to have you here.
My pleasure.
How are you?
I'm doing great, thank you.
Good. I'm so glad that you were able to make it.
It's my pleasure to be here.
Well, Charles, I read your novel, and I really loved it, and it was really hard to put it down, so I had to read it, I think, in 2 sittings. I think I pretty much covered it. Yeah, that was really good. Now, which I think also, I mean, I just hope that you somehow find a way to turn this into a film or a TV series, because I think it would be absolutely successful.
Well, I think that's any writer's dream to have something that they've written to become a film or a miniseries, just so that they could see their vision brought to film and to see it acted out. Yeah,
well,
I would love to. I would love to see that.
Well, so for the people who don't know about your book yet, tell the audience, what is your novel about?
Well, the premise of the novel is that in the years before Marilyn Monroe died, it was rumored that she had kept a diary with all her very sensational and steamy her intrigues and her affairs with the Kennedys, and these like these very hidden things that the public didn't know about at the time. She was keeping a record of it, and the rumor has it that shortly before she died, the diary disappeared. So the premise of my novel is that her diary has been rediscovered after nearly 40 years, and it's being published for the first time. So you're reading Marilyn's stories, her anecdotes, her personality, her voice in her own words for the first time.
And you do a great job, because throughout the book it was just so vivid, and like you said, you could hear her voice, her mannerisms, I mean her way, her movement. Of course, it's a well-known celebrity, so it's a lot easier that way. But it was just incredible, very vivid, very detailed.
Thank you. That
was
makes
wonderful,
me feel good
and that's
to hear
why it looked and it read like a film.
Yeah.
It was very visual. What originally drew you to Marilyn Monroe? What do you remember?
Well, yeah, I do remember, because I was a very young boy. I was 11 years old when I first saw a photo of Marilyn in a magazine, and there were so many, just from looking at this one photograph, there were so many complexities and sides to her. I mean, she was a grown woman and she was being very sexual, and yet there was a part of her that was very vulnerable and childlike, and there was another part of her that was very confident, and there was another part of her that said, "Please love me." And I looked at this one picture, and even as a kid, I said, this is someone with a story behind her. I'd like to know more about her, and I started right away collecting things about her, books and magazines from the 1950s and 60s, from a very young age. And it was weird because, an 11-year-old boy, and back in a tough neighborhood in Queens, New York, to be collecting things about Marilyn Monroe was strange. I mean, no one.
Did you share that with other kids? I mean,
no, it was something that you had to keep very private, because they were playing baseball, and I was inside watching the 4:30 movie, with the 7-year itch.
So it's like a secret, right?
Yeah, it was a secret thing.
But would that be also perhaps the reason why you decided to do it as a fiction, so you would have more of a freedom to fill in the places that you weren't able to really find out more about her, and instead of a biography format?
Yeah, I think that as far as biography goes, there's been so many biographies written about her. We know the facts of her life. We know where she was at any given time, when she was meeting someone, the date that she started a film. I felt sort of like an artist. When an artist does a portrait of Marilyn, or a sculptor does a sculpture, it's their interpretation. This is from years of reading about her and watching her films and studying her image. This is my interpretation of Marilyn. This is the way that I could recreate her as she exists for me. I think a lot of legendary figures, they seep into the imagination of the individual, and everyone has their own vision of what they were, how they acted, what they were, and what they were like in real life. And the Marilyn Diaries is my version of what Marilyn Monroe was like in real life.
Wow. Now, in the process, was it difficult as a man, to get into a woman's hearts and sensibility, especially someone as complex and famous as Marilyn? Did you have difficulties, or there certain parts that were more difficult than others, perhaps?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think that every man has a feminine side, and I think that every woman has a masculine side, and I think that for men, it's really taboo to try to explore your feminine side, your vulnerabilities, your tenderness. And that's what I had to tap into to get into Marilyn. The persona of Marilyn, and I believe as a real living, breathing human being, she was very vulnerable and sensitive. So I had to go into that area to discover her. And I think that in doing that, I found out a lot about myself as well.
Yeah, what aspects did you relate the most with her? That's interesting.
Well, I think that her loneliness. I think that to write about Marilyn Monroe in any kind of honesty, you have to understand loneliness. And it doesn't have to be her kind of loneliness. It has to be a certain kind of loneliness. I know for me personally, when I was growing up, I grew up in a very tough neighborhood. And I was like sort of a sensitive, artistic guy. I like to paint, I like to draw, I like to read. And
you always felt like you didn't belong. You weren't part of the
boys my age in my neighborhood were out playing football, and they were like roughhousing, and I was quiet, and I kept to myself, and I felt like a misfit, and I think that relating to Marilyn, she felt like a misfit. She never had a family, and she grew up as an orphan. She never really felt loved. So in the way that I never felt that I belonged, Marilyn never felt that she belonged. Even though I did come from a very loving family who gave me love, I still felt that I had to prove my existence, that, I'm not like everyone else.
Right.
And so there must be something that's wrong with me. And so I was trying to always gain people's acceptance and gain people's love and get them to like me. I think that was Marilyn's main thing in her whole life. Her whole persona was, please like me, please accept me, please love me.
Right, that's true. Now, Charles, for all these people out there that is a lot of Marilyn aficionados, what would you say that your book has, or what do you have to offer that the other books out there don't have? And I know would like to inject here another thing, that I know you've been very critical of, I think, what is her name, Joyce Carol Oates, who wrote Blondie. I haven't read the book, but tell me what the difference is between your book and the other books that are out there, and what is it that people are going to get, mostly? Well,
I think that, well, first of all, this is an artist's recreation of Marilyn Monroe. I'm not trying to pass this off as fact. I'm trying to pass this off.
Although it's based on a lot of facts.
It's based on fact.
It feels so real.
I talk about the night that she sang Happy Birthday to the President, and I talk about her childhood, and I talk about things that really happened, but yet we don't know what she was thinking.
Exactly.
At those moments, and you could only imagine. So that's what I do. I imagine what she was thinking, what she was feeling.
And that is something that hasn't been done.
Well, it hasn't been done, in my opinion, correctly.
As well as you have.
Yeah.
So it hasn't been done, period.
You mentioned Joyce Carol Oates' novel, and she got, she's a famous feminist author, and she came out with a book called Blonde recently. And I think that the mistake that she made, and that so many people make when they're dealing with the character of Marilyn Monroe, is they tap into the caricature of what she was. They watch her movies and they say, dumb blonde, big chest, sexy broad,
so they
no brain.
Just start giving adjectives, you mean?
Yeah, well, they start giving the adjectives that are wrong. They start giving, they look at her image and they don't look beyond that. I think that, you have to realize that Marilyn Monroe was a woman who didn't walk around with big teased blonde hair and red lipstick and a red beauty mark and low-cut gowns all the time. I mean, she was a friend. She was an intellectual in certain aspects. She was very smart. She was political. She was sensitive. She was hungry to be better. She just wasn't this breathless baby doll that walked around who was constantly a victim of men. And I think that that's the mistake that Joyce Carol Oates made in Blonde, which got a lot of publicity because of her name. She tried to say... By the way, interject.
All in one go.
It was because they came out at the same time, and her being a famous writer, she got more attention.
Okay.
I think that she was trying to make Marilyn fascinating, and to make her fascinating, she said, well, I have to have her raped 20 times, and I have to have her really dumb, and I have to have her beat up, and this makes her more fascinating, instead of saying, let me go into this woman's mind and say, well, she was very witty. She was very smart. She was very ambitious. She was very talented.
Yes.
But she was very insecure. And you have to, it's very complicated, but you have to try to, when you're trying to recreate her mind, you have to put all this into consideration and make it come out in one portrayal. Yes. And I think that's where other writers fail, where I, Bianca, succeeded.
And I agree with you. I think you did a splendid job. Let's go ahead and read a passage. I would love you to read one of your favorite passages from your book. And so it will give the audience a little taste of what they can expect.
Well, all right. Well, I'm going to read a passage, but I have to make you understand that it's gonna be weird because here I am, a big burly hairy guy.
No. The words.
Okay, well, and, you try to imagine me as a blonde goddess.
That's right.
Okay. Think of me as a blonde legend.
Do you need to explain anything? Just
I'm going to set it up like you would set up a movie clip.
Okay, so very quickly.
Very quickly. In this segment of the diary, what happened just preceding this segment, Marilyn met with Jacqueline Kennedy. Jacqueline Kennedy was aware that Marilyn is having an affair with her husband, and they met for a luncheon where Jacqueline was going to tell Marilyn, the affair is over, Jack is going to leave you, his eye is on, second term as president. And Marilyn feels very insecure because she sees Jackie's class and sophistication and intelligence and education. It's above her. So Marilyn leaves this meeting feeling very small and insecure, as she sometimes could because she was uneducated. So now they met in public, so they had to be in disguise. So they both weren't in their persona, which gives them power. When Jackie Kennedy goes out and people recognize her, Marilyn Monroe goes out and people, fawn over her. But they were in disguise, so she's not Marilyn. So she walks out of the restaurant, and it's raining, and she's in a wig, and no one knows it's Marilyn Monroe, and she's just a regular citizen of New York, and she has to take the subway, to get home. And so she doesn't even have she's feeling very stripped of all her dignity from the meeting with Jackie. But on top of that, she's just a regular citizen, so she doesn't even have the backup of being Marilyn Monroe. So here we go. She's taking Marilyn's taking the subway after a meeting with Jackie, and she says in her diary, "But once I walked down the subway steps onto the subway station, I realized that I had made a terrible mistake. I was trapped in the crowded station just as sure as I was trapped inside my own life. I gasped and gasped and gasped, but there was no air forthcoming. I couldn't breathe. After a lifetime of searching, I thought I had finally known real love. The cup was held in front of me just long enough for me to taste from it. And now, before even having a chance to really experiencing it fully, to enjoy it, it was being taken away from me. Every time I'm almost making it, every happiness that seems to be within my grasp, something comes along and snatches it. And this is life as I know it. There are no miracles. There are no dreams that come true. There are no knights in shining armor. There are only men that use you. There are trains that roar through subway tunnels, fast and hard and unfeeling. I might throw myself in front of one and become one, splat with the train. My heart and liver and gut splattered all over the front, hot and red and steaming. as the train roared from station to station, and then whatever was left of my body would grow cold, but unfeeling. Unfeeling.
Beautiful, beautiful. Really, very nice, very nice.
Well, you know, it's like you got to hear it in a
No,
woman's
and there are
voice.
so many. That's great. You did wonderful. Thank you. No, and there are many other facets that you also come up.
I try to get her
very
humor.
Creative. Yes,
I try to get her intelligence.
Humorous and
Yeah.
sexual and sensual and vulnerable
Uh-huh.
and no, it's wonderful and so vivid and so touching. Really, you did a marvelous job.
Oh,
You should
thank you,
be
Bianca.
very proud.
Well, that
Very
makes me
proud.
feel very good coming from you.
Well, thank you. Thank
A good
you.
writer within yourself. I mean,
Well, thank
I've read
you.
some of your stuff, and I know that you're terrific.
We're going to talk about this in a second, too, because I want to thank you about that as well.
Okay.
Some people, regarding some of the passages in the book, which is not this one that Charles just read, but other passages that you deal with more sexual experiences and other areas, there were some people that perhaps are I heard that, very upset that you, in a way, sort of like disrespected her memory.
Yeah.
How do you respond to that kind of criticism?
Well, there were people that were taken aback because I have scenes where she's having sex and where the scene she's talking about her sex life. But I feel that when you're trying to recreate someone's diary, first of all, you have to recreate their most intimate moments, and some of a person's, you know, every person, yours, mine, and everyone else out there, their most intimate moments are their sex life. And so I felt that it was necessary to make her a full-blooded human being to talk about her sex life. And also, Marilyn was a sexual human being. She was a pioneer in the sex world. I mean, she did a lot to break down taboos and to further censor, you know, to lessen censorship in the future. And I think that it was important to make her a sexual person.
Yeah, I agree, and I think, again, you did it very well. You know, and people have to have a little humor as well, you know, because again, like you said, this is a diary. You expect a certain level of intimacy. You don't want to be totally restricted. Okay, we're going to talk about her, you know, visiting the gardens, but we're not going to talk about her in her bedroom.
Yeah, I mean, if anyone out there keeps a diary, they know that it runs the gamut of emotions. I mean, there are times when you're writing when you're furious. And there are times when you're writing when you're very happy, and there are times that you're writing when you're enraged, and there's times that when you're writing when you're very hopeful. Yeah. And I try to
and that's the beauty about your I was going to say your film. Your book is because it has all that versatility. You really cover a lot. Now, because I want to make sure that we cover as much as possible. I have a lot of things that I want to talk to you about. Why did you decide to go self-publish? Why did you self-publish your book?
Well, there were a number of reasons. I mean, I've been a professional writer for about 6 years now. I've published, to toot my own horn, I've published in a lot of prestigious publications like the New York Times. But I think that one reason was that I wanted to do it my own way. I wanted to
have more control.
I wanted to have the control where I didn't have an editor telling me, oh, this will never read, or this is unbelievable, or you have to cut out here, or you have to put more of this. Also, there was a timing issue. I felt that the timing was right. I mean, it was at the time when there was the Marilyn auction in New York where they were auctioning off her personal effects, and I felt that there was a lot of interest about Marilyn. I wanted this to come out right now, and I wanted to do it my own way.
It's a perfect time. What was the process like?
Well, it was a complicated process. I mean, you have to find out what's right for you. You have to first of all, you have to have someone to edit it, professionally, to just line read it and correct your grammar. I got a little leeway because it's a diary, so I said, well, if there's some mistakes, they're Marilyn's mistakes, not mine,
They'll
because
be more
it's a diary.
They'll be more forgiving. Yeah.
But the cover photo and things like that. I mean, it's complicated to do it. But
and Charles, what would you say perhaps was the most gratifying thing in the process of self-publishing your own book?
Well, the most gratifying thing doing it yourself is that it's like Frank Sinatra said, you did it my way. I mean, it's my way. I mean, there was no compromise. I did everything from the cover to the back blurbs to the content. It's all what I wanted to say.
And the biggest drawback?
Well, I think there's still a stigma about self-publishing. I think that there's a lot of mainstream publications that won't even look at a book that you self-published. There's a lot of people out there waving their arms saying, see me, I'm talented, read me, look at me, I'm an actor, I'm an actress, I'm a writer, I'm this. So when you self-publish, you're just one of them waving your product in front of the eyes of the masses.
No, I think you're ahead because you actually have the book.
Yeah.
as a matter of fact, you know that I've written a novel, and I am thinking about self-publishing, and I'm hoping perhaps that by the end of the year I'll be able to do that. And so this is very informative as well, although I think I'm going to go through another company that perhaps you chose. It will be really, there's just so many things available out there. It's going to be really fascinating to do that. But in addition to what you said, Charles, can you also perhaps like give us 3 or 4 advices, or the main advice that you would give to someone who's out there writing a book and would like to self-publish? What are the things that you learned that you just wish that you knew before you started the process?
Sure. I mean, I guess I'm an expert at this point. I think that number one, you should be prepared to be a one-man company, an institution. I mean, you have to be your own mail order house.
Publicist.
You have to be your own publicity team. You have to be your own. I mean, people are going to be writing to you, asking you questions. I mean, it's like you're running a company yourself. So that's the main thing. I was lucky in the way that the name Marilyn Monroe and having the name the Marilyn Diaries helps.
Because a lot of people just go in the computer.
They're looking for Marilyn.
Exactly.
Marilyn is a she's a publicizing machine. Even many years after her death, people are still interested. There's fan clubs, there's collectors. So, people are just looking for new things.
And that's how people are reaching it, through the...
I'm finding a lot of people through that. I mean, if my book was called The Diary of Frida Schleswapper, I probably have sold 2 copies, but because it's Marilyn Monroe...
It's true. When I type in Marilyn Monroe, I think your book is one of the items there, too.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, tell us perhaps some of the experiences you've had as a journalist, because I know you've been writing for a long time. And tell me first your first experience as a writer, and also some of the successful stories.
Well, I'll do it really briefly, and I'll encapsulate it into one story. I was an actor, and I was looking for avenues to promote myself, and I thought that by being a writer, that might be a way to meet movers and shakers in the arts and entertainment field, directors and movie producers. And so I started working for a very small publication with a small circulation, and I was interviewing, people like John Waters, whoever was in New York. I was living in New York at the time. Whoever was in New York publicizing a project. So I was doing it for about 6 months, hoping that, someone was going to discover me as an actor and put me in a film. And all of a sudden one night, about 8 o'clock at night, I was just about to bite into a big juicy hamburger, and the phone rang, and I picked it up, and it was someone who identified herself as an editor at the New York Times. And I thought, my first thought was, someone in my family committed a horrible crime, and they're calling me for a quote. They want to know. They want to say,
amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, oh my God, what is somebody doing? I was ready to say, no comment, click.
What a drama. And then?
And she said, we've been seeing your work, and we would like you to work for Arts and Leisure and do some profiles for us. Arts and Leisure, New York Times.
You're thinking of murder.
Yeah, I'm thinking of crime and degradation, and here it is, honor, and so I was very honored. But I was also terrified because I didn't even read the New York Times, let alone write for them. But I said, yes, of course, I would love to write for you. And, so, they said, well, we want you to profile, cutting-edge, quirky, irreverent people on the edge and do it for the Sunday Times. So I said yes, and I did a crash course in the New York Times, and I learned how to do it. And my first piece was a full page. And after that, I was a writer. I was a professional. I had never studied writing. I had never thought of it as a career, but that's what I've been doing ever since.
And this is your first novel, and I know that you have another one on the works, so hopefully you'll be coming out with that very soon.
Yeah.
Charles, I can't believe it's going so fast. Did you say 4 minutes, Mark? I don't believe it. Well, maybe I'll have time for one more question, but then I have to do my thank yous here.
Okay.
What would you say was the most influential person in your life as a writer?
Well, I mean, you want me to mention
anyone?
You want me to mention writers, but no, what I would like.
No,
to
anyone like a.
Well, I have to mention my parents, my mother and father, Gloria and Ralph, because I think a writer's life is so up and down, and there are times when you're making a lot of money and then you're not making any money. And my parents have always been so supportive of me, and you need someone to believe in you when you're going to bars to eat peanuts to live on because you don't have money to buy a meal.
Yeah,
and my parents have always been that way for me. They've always been, do you need anything? Do you need any money? Do you, and they've believed in me. And I think that you need, when you're doing anything artistic, you need at least one person, and I'm lucky to have two, my mother and father, to say, we believe in you and we think that someday, it's
makes
going
a
to
huge
happen.
difference.
It did for me.
It's incredible. We're running out of time, and I want to thank you for coming. You're wonderful, and I really hope that if you want to know more about the Marilyn Diaries, you can contact me. And the number of that you can contact me will be at the end of the show. You can also write to Bianca Show at earthlink.net. Thank you, Charles, for being here. Thank you, my wonderful crew, for helping me out here.
We'll get a free copy.
Oh, yes. We're going to give you a free copy. What is it going to be?
A signed copy. 13th caller.
All right. So you see, the 13th person who writes to Bianca Show at earthlink.net, send me an email, and we'll definitely mail, and he will sign it and mail to you directly. I want to thank the Cleor for being absolutely wonderful. They are providing the show with marvelous surprise gifts to some of our audience members. And so if you're interested, also write and ask for your Declare surprise gift. And it's just beyond delicious. You're going to smell and feel great. And I want to thank Gigi and Jackie at Gigi Salon in Beverly Hills, and my wonderful caterer, Sunny at Café Modigliani in Beverly Hills as well. And also for the support and all the care, La Fondue Bourguignon in Sherman Oaks. I'm running here out of time. But thank you for watching, and I hope you stay tuned. Send us your comments and requests, and I hope to see you next time. And please write to Bianca Show at earthlink.net. Thank you. I'll see you again. Bye-bye. Thank you, Charles.
My pleasure.
Nice to have you here.
Thank you.